Thank you, Donald. Well, the government have just been defeated in the House of Lords, and this, of course, is part of a long battle ever since Independence Day on June the 23rd last year. There have been attempts through the High Court, attempts through the Supreme Court, attempts through the House of Commons, and now the government finally in the House of Lords has been defeated on something. Interestingly, at this point about whether EU citizens that legally came to this country should have their rights guaranteed is something that completely unified the Leave campaign last year. Not one campaigner ever suggested those people who'd come legally should have their rights questioned. Many of us thought that immediately after Brexit, or perhaps after the declaration of Article 50, we should start putting some limits on. But it was the government, it was Amber Rudd, who seems to think this should be used as a negotiating chip now, given that there are about 3.5 million EU nationals living in the UK and 1 million or fewer UK citizens living in Europe. One wonders how much of a chip she really thought this was. But I want to go straight to Theo Usherwood, BBC's political correspondent. Theo, the government have been defeated. Theresa May is supposed to be going next Thursday to Brussels to trigger Article 50. What does the government now do?
Yes, we are now into the territory of parliamentary ping-pong. The government has been defeated on an amendment tabled, cross-party amendment, but tabled by the Labour benches, which would safeguard the rights of EU nationals living in the UK, there are around 3 million of them, before Theresa May triggers Article 50. They've been defeated by 102 votes. 358 plays 256. It's a big defeat. And of course now the bill heads back to the Commons. It will be overturned. But while that's going on, Nigel, there are going to be lots of backroom negotiations to try and pick off those Conservative peers, and we'll get the list soon, who rebelled against their own party, to say, hang on a moment, you cannot defy the will of the British people on this one, because Theresa May, in her view, Prime Minister's view, needs to be able to head into those negotiations with the strongest hand possible. And the government's take on this is, if it cannot, it does not need to go into those negotiations, having already guaranteed the rights of EU nationals, because of course those 27 other EU member states haven't guaranteed the rights of British expats living abroad, predominantly Spain and then France and Germany afterwards. And that's why the government has taken this position. You're quite right, Nigel. There was cross support, you know, across the Leave campaign during the referendum campaign for the rights of EU nationals already living in the UK to be able to remain here, and there was a heated debate about it between, as I referred to earlier, Will Straw, the director of the Remain campaign, who said this could be an issue, and Peter Bone of Grassroots out. But Theresa May, and this is the issue for Theresa May, because she's always been very clear that by implementing Brexit, she is implementing the will of the British people. She's implementing what people voted for on June the 23rd, but this is something that people didn't vote for on June the 23rd because it wasn't part of the Leave campaign manifesto. Now, moving on, I've been key moments, if you like, in this debate. Baroness Hayter of Kentish Town opened the debate for the Labour Party.
And it's legitimate of them to think they're being used as negotiating capital, because that's exactly what the Home Office told them. Now, all of these 3 million, and indeed the 4 of us whose names are on the amendment, also share a real concern for those UK expats who, thanks to their EU membership, have settled in one of the other 27 countries.
Now, in the past week, there's been a bit of a heated row between Lord Tebbit and Michael Heseltine. Lord Tebbit even saying on LBC that he thinks Lord Heseltine, for his Remain rhetoric, should be kicked out of the Conservative Party. And he didn't miss the opportunity in this debate to have another dig at his old foe.
I think I should first of all, in a manner which has not been followed by anybody else in this House today, declare my interest in this matter. I have, first of all, a nephew who has lived and worked in Germany for 20 years, and I have a Danish son-in-law who has lived in this country for over 30 years. Secondly, I would like to say what an extraordinary experience it has been here today. Yeah. First of all, we have been unfortunately and unusually denied the presence of my noble friend Lord Heseltine, who strangely is not in his usual place to speak to us.
The problem for Lord Tevitt there was that Lord Heseltine was hiding away on one of the back benches on the government side of the House of Lords. Interesting contribution from John Sentamu, the Archbishop of York, who said he actually supported Theresa May's position.
All this little bill is doing is just like a race about to start. On your mark, set, bang, then they take off. And it will take 2 years, friends, to run this race. And during the running of that race, we want to ensure that actually concerns which are being raised in this come back. Now, if, as I do, want to see that there is this decision which the government takes on behalf of all of us, that European citizens should be given a guarantee to remain, the best way to do it is to call the bluff of Angela Merkel.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Theo Usherwood, LBC's political editor. It's going to be a fascinating week. This is going to go back and forth. I wonder, should the unelected House of Lords be getting involved in this at all? I'm not so sure they should. I suspect their popularity will go down. Although the issue itself, I haven't got a problem with. And I was amazed, actually, when Theresa May and Amber Rudd decided they would make this an issue when it was perfectly clear from all of us on the Leave side we didn't want the rights of anybody who'd come to Britain legally to be challenged. There's going to be this is going to dominate British politics for the next week and maybe beyond. And I wonder what Scott in Glasgow makes of all of this.
Hello, Nigel. It's actually an honour to be speaking with you. I got to see you speak in Glasgow University when you were up here for the grassroots movement. And now I finally get to talk to you.
You do?
Yes. As you can tell, I'm not originally from Glasgow. I am American. I've been living in Britain for almost 5 years now, and I've gone through the immigration policy, and I don't see what all the fuss is about. Obviously, 30, 40 years ago, they had some kind of a policy if a German or a French person would want to, immigrate to Britain.
Yeah.
Why can't they just bring that back? Or, if you've been living here legally, you came here legally, you hold employment, you hold residence, why can't they just have you fill out a simple form, apply for indefinite leave to remain, and that's it. You get to stay. That's what I had to do when I first came here, and and now I'm a citizen. I applied for citizenship. I don't see what all the fuss is about. I think they're just making too big of a deal about it when it could be something very simple and something quick. And I don't agree that the House of the Lords should be getting involved in it. I mean, do they get involved? I don't think they really had a say in my immigration status, or my application.
Well, the House of Lords normally, Scott, what they do, there's a thing called the Salisbury Convention, and that says that if a government is elected on a manifesto, they will not attempt to block that in the House of Lords. And of course, what they're arguing today is that this referendum result wasn't in any manifesto, and so they are free to speak. But it kind of does feel a little bit, doesn't it? Although a sort of unelected, appointed in most cases by Tony Blair and David Cameron class of people, are meddling and trying to bind the government's hands. And I suspect, Scott, they'll be rather less popular this time next week than they are now, don't you?
Well, I mean, from what I've been hearing, and they've never been that popular to begin with, especially after, their little, what's the word I'm looking for? Their office, their time in office. There's a lot of different mixed emotions about them, and this was the whole idea with the Brexit was, if you look at the messengers, you don't really need to listen to the actual message. When you have Wall Street putting their comments in, you have Tony Blair, you have David Cameron, you have all of a sudden Obama coming in.
Sure, it was the establishment, Scott, wasn't it? It was the establishment versus the people, And
everybody always knows that they don't have our best interest at heart. Everybody always knows that. So why this time do they? Why this time would you side with the establishment when everybody was anti-establishment? Everybody always said they're against the little people, and now the little people want to stand by them this time.
Wow.
What makes this time so different? And I didn't really need to hear too many of the arguments. I looked into the European Union when I came here. I couldn't understand it. Not that I was, too ignorant. I just didn't understand why Britain would have joined it to begin with.
Well, we joined it, Scott. We joined it, Scott, because we were told a series of great big fibs. We were told it was about free trade, and we were in it with countries that were very equivalent to us. And 20 years after we joined, there were no more British people working in Germany or German people working in Britain than there had been before. It was just easier to do. The problem came, Scott, when we let in 10 former communist countries and disproportionately large numbers of people came to Britain. I think we let too many people in, but I firmly take the view that if you were allowed in legally, those rights shouldn't be challenged. And the government, I think, has got itself into a bit of a mess. Scott, I thank you. I wonder what Will in Evesham makes of tonight's debacle.
Good evening, Nigel. Yeah, I think it's absolutely right. That's exactly what the Lords should be doing. And I think at last there's a bit of debate. I mean, the only rational debate I've actually heard so far was the one in the Commons. And then, unfortunately, they didn't back their convictions. I thought Kenneth Clark, for instance, had a fantastic argument. I mean, what we've got to remember is this idea against the will of the people is utter rubbish. I mean, you know, I remember that you stood in front of that poster, you know, that totally misleading poster.
Oh no, it was a factual poster, Will. It was a photograph.
But it was a misrepresentation, Nigel. I mean, do I need to mention the word red bus? You know, with the infamous 350 million, which you then the very next day said, no, that was a mistake. At the end of the day, people were totally misled. Do
you know what, Will? We've been misled for nearly half a century on the true intentions of the European Union. Will, you and I are not going to agree on this one, but I thank you. Your texts and tweets coming through. Delighted at the news. The government now has to guarantee the rights of EU nationals in the UK. We're better together, says Jack. Well, Jack, we can cooperate with each other, but the question is, we're not going to have a continuance of the free movement of people. Of that, I think the British people spoke very clearly. The government are in a mess. And the House of Lords, in my view, have interfered a bit too much. The unelected so-called Lords are doing the EU's job for them. They'll be rubbing their hands with glee tonight in Brussels. What mugs we are. Now that Parliament has revealed some of our cards, surely the EU should reciprocate. Eddie, you make a very good point. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
What is the problem with the word hysterical? I know for a fact, and I would swear on the proverbial stack of Bibles, and I've said it to both women and I've said it to both men, but Chancellor Philip Hammond finds himself accused of sexism after he told a female Labour MP not to be hysterical.
If she takes offence at the word hysterical, she really needs to get out of the House of Commons more often and take a walk down the street and live how real people see.
That word to me, when I think of somebody being hysterical, I immediately think of a woman.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton, making you welcome at over 40 hotels in Europe.
Giving a gift feels, it's better than good. It feels great, doesn't it? Well, now's your chance to give probably the biggest gift of your life. If you're 55 or over, visit freewillsmonth.net. A group of charities have all paid for a limited number of wills for people like us. It costs nothing and a qualified solicitor will write your will. This is your opportunity to leave a valuable gift to the charities sponsoring Free Wills Month. A gift that lets them care for the sick and vulnerable, fund groundbreaking medical research, save lives at sea, and support our veterans. freewillsmonth.net.
This is the sound of someone breaking into your business. It's that simple, and once they're in your systems, they can do real damage. Hiscox Cyber and Data Insurance for small businesses covers everything from extortion to data theft. Our team of IT specialists will recover lost data and prevent further damage wherever possible, so you can concentrate on connections in the real world. Hiscox Cyber and Data Insurance for the small and the brave.
What do you get if you cross the Queen of British Comedy?
Will you be my new BF?
Yes! With some of the most amazing kids on the planet.
You're actually trying to kill me, aren't you? Have you been paid by my husband?
A whole lot of laughs, that's what.
Tell me to do something now.
Read the script.
No, I won't. You can't play that with a blindfold on, surely.
Dawn French presents Little Big Shots, the show that shines the spotlight on the world's most talented kids. Tonight at 8 on ITV.
Buying a new car is so exciting, but at the same time, a bit daunting. Trudging around the dealers, haggling over price, always wondering if you're getting a good deal. But with CarWow, there's none of that. Just select the car you want, and CarWow brings you the best prices from their network of top dealers. All you have to do is choose which one to buy from. It's car buying with you in the driving seat. Search CarWow and try it today.
All of us at QuickFit would like to say a big thank you to each and every one of our customers. That's why we're offering MOTs for just £35. To help you pass, here's a little tip to check your tyre tread at home. Simply place the bottom edge of a 20p piece into the tread, and if you see less than half of the number 20, then your tread is legal. Get down to your local QuickFit and book your £35 MOT today. QuickFit, it's all about the service.
This is a live update for UK businesses. From award-winning cider to freshline caught salmon, the UK is renowned for its quality produce. If you're in food and drink, it's time to take your next step by selling overseas. To get a taste for what's out there, search Exporting is Great.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show, live from New York. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
So the government have been defeated in the House of Lords because the Lords have said that the rights of people from the European Union who came to Britain should be guaranteed, whereas Amber Rudd, the Home Secretary, had wanted this to be a negotiating chip when they go to Brussels. Here's the problem. The problem is the European Summit is on the 9th and 10th of March. I know because I'm going to be there. And the plan was that the Prime Minister would trigger Article 50 next Thursday evening, but she's just lost a vote in the House of Lords. Do we go for a game of ping pong here where it goes back to the Commons and then back to the Lords, or does the government simply have to concede defeat on this? All that we'll find out soon, I guess. More texts and tweets. We can't trust the Tories, Nigel. Article 50 should have been invoked straight after the Brexit vote. I smell a rat, says Tom in Basingstoke. Paul on Facebook says the EU will make it as difficult as possible for Brexit. We all know this. Matt says that some people are calling for Lord Farage and then saying, get rid of the House of Lords in the next sentence. Hypocritical. I was never going to the House of Lords, Matt, believe me. Callum says, why should other EU countries guarantee our citizens' rights? Well, I tell you what, Callum, they will, and I tell you why. Because the Brits that live in France, the Brits that live on the Costa del Sol, contribute a huge amount to that economy. And when they get medical care in the hospitals, do you know what? The British government actually pays the bill, which doesn't happen with other EU countries when it's the other way round. Alan in Edgware, should the rights of EU citizens be guaranteed? Has the House of Lords got this one right, Elan?
To be honest, they haven't.
Right.
The reason is, I want to quote an example, my example. What happened was, I married, if someone comes in, say, from any of the EU European countries, and they marry a non-EU citizen, those non-EU citizens are guaranteed benefits immediately. I married an American girl, ironically enough, from New York.
Yeah.
We had to fork out thousands over 5 years. She had to take a test. Fair enough. We're not complaining, but why is the land not, you know, what the old cliche is, it's a boring cliche, but a level playing field. We know someone that also married an American lady recently. What happened was he couldn't marry her. They wouldn't allow her to stay. He popped along to the German embassy because his grandfather's German, got a German passport, and hey presto, she was on benefits before you know it.
Well, that's because...
I had a company, I work in a profession that's been decimated by another organisation that pays lesser tax, pays lesser tax to Holland, 80% less than what they would pay to HMRC. So, you know, you've been shunted on both fronts. What about rights that they should stick up for? Their £300 a day that they take for British subjects and British citizens that live in this country. The rights should be equal across the board. If they marry people from outside,
One of the points of a Leave campaign. One of the points of a Leave campaign was that we should, in future, treat people coming into this country from across the world equally, regardless whether they come from the European Union, from India, from America, from Australia. And that was one of the arguments we all made on the Leave side during the campaign. So you're quite right to point out that right now it's not a level playing field. All I would say to you is that whilst it seems outrageous to many that some have come in from the European Union and very quickly been able to claim all sorts of in-work benefits, get their children educated, whatever it may be, the point is that when those people came to the United Kingdom, legally they were entitled to do that. So surely we can't change it retrospectively, can we?
Well, I mean, when Brexit, please God, will get through, then everyone should be subject to the same across the board. We're just asking for everybody to be treated equally. As a British citizen, a British subject, has put tens of thousands of pounds into HMRC in the last 26 years, have been treated appallingly. But we have a little kid now, a 3 or 4 year old kid, thank God. But you know, she was almost threatened with deportation if you didn't have this, if you didn't have that criteria, and everyone else. Someone can come in, doesn't speak a word of English from Eastern, anywhere in Europe, and then marry somebody, say, from the Middle East or from... And no problem. Well, there's no problem with
longer term, we've got to sort this out. Longer term, we've got to sort this out. But in the space of the next week, the government have got to sort this out. And thank you for your call and your texts and tweets. It's very unlikely. But what happens if the EU refuses to let our citizens continue to live in Europe after we have granted their citizens the right to live here, asked Graham. Graham, they would look... I think they would become virtually international pariahs. How ironic it would be if Chancellor Merkel, having said, as many of you that want to come from North Africa can, would say that a retired British couple living on the Costa del Sol and spending their pension couldn't be there. It would look ridiculous, and you know what? It ain't going to happen. Nigel, sorry to disagree with you, but all EU citizens who arrived after the referendum results must leave. Surely they knew the score when they arrived, says Anton. Well, Anton, I actually think there needs to be a cut-off at some point. Goodness me, it could happen, couldn't it, next week? Theresa May could go next week, on the 9th of March, and say to people in Brussels, now look, huge numbers have come to our country, but actually we're going to guarantee all of their rights. But hereafter, we're going to be more selective. I wonder whether she will. I wonder whether she'll be able to trigger Article 50 if this dispute hasn't been sorted. I wonder what Daniel in Northampton makes of this row.
Nigel, I'm absolutely furious that this evening an unelected House of Lords has done this not to protect the rights of EU citizens, but to give Theresa May and her government an absolute kicking. That's what they've sought to do. This isn't about giving rights to EU citizens. Of course, I believe that they should. I voted to leave, and I believe that EU citizens' rights should be protected in Britain, as well as British expats being treated the same way in the EU after we leave.
So you agree, Daniel, with what they voted for, but not the fact they've done it as an unelected House of Lords?
This was not the time or place for this. We are about, hopefully, to embark on a 2-year negotiation period, and as the government have said several times, we need to go into those negotiations with our cards to our chest so that we get the best deal for Britain post-Brexit. And what the House of Lords have done is effectively weakened our negotiating hand. They have potentially delayed the deadline for triggering Brexit, because that's all this 133 words is actually about. Is to fire the starting gun to trigger Brexit and then start the negotiations. What I'm concerned about is that the House of Lords are going to continue to do this and to continue to defy the will of the people. Now, you yourself campaigned for many years against an unelected bureaucratic machine, and I'm afraid what's happened tonight is we have been attacked, essentially, by an even older unelected bureaucratic machine.
Yep. Daniel, you make the point beautifully. Thank you. And on Facebook, John agrees. He says the Lords and their traditions are outdated and pathetic in these modern times. Mark simply says, abolish the House of Lords. They serve no purpose. Well, actually, Mark, they have served a bit of a purpose tonight, and the government has got a big headache. I wonder what Matthew in Heathrow makes of all of this. Have the House of Lords done the right thing, Matthew, or should they have kept out of it?
Well, no, I think it's right, Nigel, that House of Lords basically have done the right thing, that they shouldn't be using humans as bargaining chips. I mean, the people are now living and working legally in this country, and we need them for the infrastructure and the hospitals and everything. So, you know, we've just got to unilaterally say they are going to stay, and Theresa May, unfortunately, has got it wrong again. I mean,
in reality, Matthew, she was never going to use this bargaining chip anyway, was she?
Well, that's right, and I think she's got it wrong, and I think you're possibly the Prime Minister in waiting, because I think things the way, I mean, Theresa May is trying to copy what you're saying about Brexit, but she's still getting it wrong, and I wonder, are you actually ready to rejoin the Conservative Party and maybe take over the leadership in the future?
No, I'm not, Matthew, at all. I don't really like the Conservative Party very much. I don't trust them very much. I mean, it's very difficult to trust them, and particularly, I mean, this Prime Minister who says these magnificent things when she gives her high vaunting speeches, but I saw it all when she was Home Secretary. She didn't deliver. The irony here, Matthew, is you're right in one sense. They've tried to sort of take my agenda, UKIP's agenda, and yet they've made a terrible mistake here, because nobody, me, anybody else on the Leave campaign ever said the rights of these people would be threatened. You know, a nation that retrospectively changes people's rights, I think you're frankly on a course to tyranny if you behave like that. Much as I disagree, Matthew, with the numbers that came, I think Theresa May's got herself in a mess. I hate the fact the House of Lords may well, in principle, have done the right thing, but I don't like their meddling, Matthew. And once this is all over, Matthew, I think the House of Lords has to go. What do you think?
Well, no, I think, I mean, they're serving their purpose. I mean, ultimately, Parliament is going to have their say, but, I mean, what Theresa May was trying to stop them have their say. And, I mean, I think possibly then, if you want to join the Conservatives, maybe you've got to go for a coalition with Liberal Democrats. I mean, they're all...
Well, who knows, Matthew, what the future holds? I don't, you don't. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show exclusively here on LBC, live from New York. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Rupert Bartier.
The government has been defeated over its Brexit bill in the House of Lords. Peers supported an amendment to the legislation to guarantee the rights of EU citizens currently living in Britain. More than 1,100 jobs are believed to be at risk at Ford's factory in South Wales. Meanwhile, hundreds of jobs are under threat at the Walker's Crisp factory in Peterlee and at Boots the Chemist amid new efficiency plans. And it's reported that 2 British medical students who joined the Islamic State group have been killed in Iraq. They were part of a group of 7 UK nationals who joined IS in 2015 after attending a university in Sudan. LBC weather. A mix of rain and clear spells into the evening. Very breezy in the south. A low of 0 Celsius. Sunshine and showers tomorrow. A high of 11 degrees.
LBC Travel. Good evening, I'm Andy Lake. Well, the M3 is down to just 1 lane southbound heading out of London, between junction 2 for the M25 and 3 for Lightwater after a serious collision. It was blocked earlier for around an hour, but 1 lane is now back open. Still horrible queues on the approach though back to the M25. Speaking of the M25, anti-clockwise still queuing itself between 16 for the M40 and 15 for the M4. There's been an accident there, now on the hard shoulder, so all lanes are back open. Also queues on the M1 northbound between 6A for the M25 and 8 for Hemel Hempstead after an accident there earlier. In Manchester, the A57M Mancunian Way has a lane blocked eastbound for a police investigation at Cambridge Street. Queues there are back to the Chester Road roundabout. And in Cumbria, no change for the A66. It stays closed in both directions following a collision earlier on this evening. Recovery work there still ongoing. As for the rail, South Eastern are at a stand between London Bridge and Cannon Street after an issue with the signals, and because of a police investigation at Waterbeach, there's still no service between Cambridge and Ely or Cambridge and Kings Lynn. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC.
All right, Steve, you're looking well.
Yeah, well, I'm lifting a lot more.
Working hard. Looking good, eh?
Yeah, and business is on the up.
Oh, so what brought all this on?
Well, she's Italian.
Nice.
And large, actually.
Well, there's a lot to be said for
She can carry a lot, too.
Right. She's a van, isn't she?
Save up to £13,000 off list price at the Fiat Professional Knockout Sales Event. Hurry, this offer must end 31st of March. Get down to your local dealer now. Terms and conditions apply. Saving refers to discount on all Ducato long wheelbase models from 27545, excluding VAT at 20%, delivery and RFL. Visit fitprofessional.co.uk for more information.
Highways England is here to improve your journey. Have you noticed the variable speed limits on the motorway?
They're there to manage congestion, so you can have a smoother journey. They're also the law, so if you ignore them and get caught, you can expect a speeding ticket and penalty points. So if you see a speed limit next time you're on the motorway, it matters that you drive within it. For more information on variable speed limits, visit highways.gov.uk/smart motorways.
An amazing kitchen, an amazing bathroom, an amazing hallway. At Amazing Tiles, our range of porcelain, ceramic and bespoke tiles can make any home amazing. Right now, buy 5 metres or more of plain tiles and get a third off the retail price. Visit our showroom and warehouse at Park Royal Road, London, or call 0208 83 84 900. Make your home amazing at amazingtiles.com.
Did you know that half of all of Canada's grizzly bears call British Columbia their home? Book with Canadian Affair and tailor-make your trip with their expert Canada know-how. Celebrate Canada's 150th birthday and save up to £200 per person, plus get £150 of holiday vouchers per couple. Want to reach the best spot to see humpback whales in the Pacific Ocean? Then fly direct from London and get your Canada know-how with CanadianAffair.com. Sale ends April 3rd.
This is a live update for UK businesses. Every day, millions of consumers are shopping online for quality UK goods. And right now, some of the world's leading online marketplaces have reduced selling costs for UK businesses. To enjoy these exclusive discounts and to find the right online marketplace for you, search Exporting is Great.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show, live from New York. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
So the government have been beaten in the House of Lords, the Lords saying that the rights of EU citizens who have come here legally should be protected and should not be a bargaining chip. And it gives the government a bit of a crisis because Theresa May intends to trigger Article 50 next Thursday. So does she accept what the House of Lords has said? Does she take it back to the House of Commons? Do we get a game of parliamentary ping-pong? We will see. Meanwhile, we talked last night about Trump's upcoming speech. And a couple of points here. Firstly, the Trump visit to the UK is now being reportedly not going to happen until October because of fear over protests. Originally it was talked about being in June. An autumn visit would coincide with Parliament being in recess. I wonder whether John Bercow has actually had quite a lot to do with all of this. But back to the speech. Trump made his big speech to Congress last night and he reaffirmed his position on a number of issues, including the building of that wall. Let's hear it.
We must restore integrity and the rule of law at our borders. We will soon begin the construction of a great, great wall along our southern border.
Well, there you are. There's Trump. He's building the wall, and he's got congressmen, and he's got senators cheering, applauding, a standing ovation when he'd finished. I think most people agreed that it was a very much more presidential performance than people have been used to from Trump thus far. And a point to make that I think is interesting is that during the campaign, he was disavowed by many in his own party. You know, the Bushes, for example, wouldn't support him. There were congressmen, there were senators who wouldn't support him. And I remember before Christmas hearing him say that he wanted to bring back together the family of the Republican Party. I tell you what, I think he is doing that. But back to the government's dilemma. Elaine in Peterborough, what would you do if you were Mrs May this evening?
Oh, Nigel, it's a very great pleasure to speak to you, and hello.
Hello, good evening.
I'm not sure. I feel disappointed, but not surprised. We have an unelected body. I think it's about 760 of them allowed to deal with the work of the House of Lords, and about 650 MPs. You see, I voted to leave, and I will not be made to feel guilty because I think we should be able to use this as a bargaining tool.
You do?
If she takes it back to the House of Commons, I'm only worried that will hold up Article 50 even more than it's been held up already. If she accepts it, that's one more negotiating tool that we haven't got, and the EU are going to make it as difficult for us as possible.
Well, Elaine, the EU, or the bosses of the EU, may well, to begin with, try and make it as difficult as possible in terms of trade and in terms of trying to say to us that we've got to keep free movement of people. But maybe, Elaine, if we were not to use this as a bargaining chip, but Theresa May was to walk into that room next Thursday afternoon, evening, and say, actually, we're going to guarantee the rights of everybody that has legally come to this country. In some ways, Elaine, wouldn't that give us a slight moral upper hand?
It certainly would give us. It would give us some moral high ground. Yes, it would.
Yes, and we would look like we'd look like the good guys, wouldn't we?
Yes, we would. I'm just worried that. I suppose what I'm really worried about is the triggering of Article 50. And because of all, because of what's gone on, the appalling, backwards, forwards, the blame, that's been placed on leavers, etc. I'm sorry, it has been. I just wonder, when are we going to see this?
Well, Elaine, we've waited for months and months. It's over 7 months since the referendum. I'm very frustrated. This wasn't done far more quickly, but we have a timeline now. She wants to trigger it in Brussels on the 9th of March. She absolutely has to do that. If she delays this, by the way, we go on another couple of months, we'll finish up in 2019 with Britain standing in the European elections again, with us being still part of the thing. So, Elaine, she's got to get on with it. I do sense your worry. I do sense your frustration. I think a lot of people feel like that. It isn't the principle tonight that worries me. What worries me is the government's misjudgment in this. I don't think they should ever have made this an issue, and I can't stand the fact the unelected House of Lords has intervened in this way. And I'm not alone in thinking this. I've got a tweet here. The turkeys just voted for Christmas. The anti-democratic Lords' vote tonight will never be forgotten or forgiven. I sense you may be right. I want to know what Nigel Farage would replace the House of Lords with if this gets to him. Daniel from Reading. Well, it did, Daniel. And I think we are going to have ultimately some kind of Senate, but with a lot of genuine expert committees, because the point about the House of Lords is that it's a reforming chamber. Its job is to look at legislation and say to governments, you may have got this wrong, think again. Separate debate, I know, to what we're talking about tonight, but relevant nonetheless. George in Walthamstow, does Mrs May have to give way on this one?
Well, yeah, probably. I've got three quick things to say. First of all, look, it's a non-issue anyway. No one has ever spoken about repatriation of anybody, so it's really a non-issue.
Agreed.
But what's happened, what we should do is we should avoid a ping-pong game. And if this is the best that people who are blocking Brexit can come up with, then it's not too bad for us Brexiteers, really. I think you should incorporate it and then press the button. So I think it's a non-issue. I think she should get on with it. And the worst is that we've shown our hand, which is really silly. But Labour-inspired people do this, don't they? Remember Gordon Brown selling the gold, telling us when he was going to sell it, how much for?
I do.
On the eve of when it was just about to go through the roof, the prices of gold.
Well, it was worse than that, George, actually. It was worse than that, because what he did, he announced the 17 dates on which he would be selling it, and the amounts he'd be selling. And guess what happened, George? The market went straight down. He sold the whole lot at an average price of $284 an ounce, and it's now $1,150, and it's been up to near 2,000 in the meantime. So yeah, government's competence is not always high. But George, basically,
well, Labour hasn't got one more point though. Labour hasn't got the hang of it clearly. One more point. He who plays the piper calls the tune. Neil Kinnock is paid £1,700 a week by the European Union in the form of a platinum, no, it's even better than platinum, pension. So, you know, is he not conflicted? And is this not another example why we have to change the upper house?
Well, actually, George, the upper house is an extremely Europhile place. There are plenty of people in that house who have EU pensions, who never declare them, as a matter of interest when they get up to speak, and the rest of the House of Lords is basically the friends of the establishment, the friends of Tony Blair, the friends of David Cameron. Yes, an upper chamber of some kind to review legislation, to bring in expertise, is of course a good thing. But I have a feeling that now what we've got is so far removed, actually, from ordinary Britain that it doesn't serve any purpose, George, does it?
No, it doesn't. I mean, I agree with you. It needs some kind of Senate arrangement with some specialist. There's a better way of getting know-how, savvy and specialist knowledge into the parliamentary process, and it's not through the Lords, it's through specialist committees and people who really know. If they keep the House of Lords, can't you get in there and do what you did in the European Union?
What, you mean have some fun, make some points, upset everybody, George? Is that what you're saying I should do?
Get in there and change it.
Well, I'm not sure that I've succeeded in changing the European Parliament, although what I think I have done is make more people aware of it, because through YouTube and other things like that, a lot of people have now engaged with the European Parliament and understand that it actually exists, which they didn't before. George, I certainly, if I was in the current House of Lords, I think I'd have no impact whatsoever. If it was to be a Senate, well, that might be different, but I suspect that's a long way down the road. In the short term, the difficulty is that we've got this deadline of March the 9th, and George, you make the point that actually, if anything had to be lost through the courts, through the House of Commons, through the House of Lords, if anything had to be lost, this one wasn't a bad one to lose, because whilst it may have been intended to be part of the government's negotiating hand, in reality, they were never, ever going to use it. We would have looked really, I think, deeply unreasonable had we taken that approach. So now the Prime Minister, she can decide what to do, but she can go along next Thursday to Brussels, take the moral high ground, say, look, we're the good guys on this. It'll be different in the future. We can't have unrestricted free movement of people. We're going to start treating people from all over the world equally. But after we've done this, can we now start talking, please, about a sensible trade deal? At least I hope, George, that's what's going to happen next week. I thank you for your call. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. The time now is 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
So the government has been defeated as peers back an amendment to protect the rights of EU citizens here in the UK. Has the House of Lords done the right thing?
Clive Bull on LBC.
Buying a new car is so exciting, but at the same time, a bit daunting. Trudging around the dealers, haggling over price, always wondering if you're getting a good deal. But with CarWow, there's none of that. Just select the car you want, and CarWow brings you the best prices from their network of top dealers. All you have to do is choose which one to buy from. It's car buying with you in the driving seat. Search CarWow and try it today.
The family member who was concerned. The neighbour who felt uneasy. The teacher who was worried. The coach who noticed at practice. And you. Child abuse. If you think it, report it. Visit gov.uk/tackle child abuse to find out how. Together, we can tackle child abuse.
Do you feel that? It's time. It's time to get away for a weekend. It's time for selfies, for that authentic Italian espresso. It's time to enjoy our flight prices, some of which are up to 30% lower than last year. It's time to forget time. It's time to take a city break with Monarch. Fly to Lisbon, Porto, Barcelona and many more. Book now at monarch.co.uk. Terms and conditions apply. See monarch.co.uk for details.
JustATrader.com. Washing machine on the blink? No problem. Just shower your clothes on. Job done. And you'll smell like coconut cream. Or get yourself on trustatrader.com and find the right person to do the job for you. Pop in your postcode and the trade you need, then you can choose from loads of tried and tested tradespeople in your area. Reviewed, reputable, right good tradespeople. Visit trustatrader.com.
This is a live update for UK businesses. Right now, you can find essential information and services about selling overseas through the government's website for exporters. Find the right information and help to grow your business. Visit great.gov.uk.
When you need more space.
Think creatively. What could you use a log cabin for? A studio? A home office? A den for the kids? Creative Living will design and build a log cabin to suit your needs, even taking care of electricity and climate control. See for yourself at our 3 large cabin display villages in Surrey. Find out where at creativelivingcabins.co.uk.
Your own log cabin, handcrafted, the creative living way.
The Nigel Farage Show, live from New York, only on LBC.
We're triggering Article 50 next Thursday, and tonight the government suffers a defeat at the hands of the unelected House of Lords, because the House of Lords have said that the rights of EU citizens who came to Britain legally should be guaranteed, and the government had wanted to use that as a bargaining chip. And I wonder what John in Germany thinks. John, do you live in Germany full time?
I tend to sort of come back and forward. I did live here for many decades, but I'm predominantly more in Glasgow, but I'm over here again.
So, John, just let me ask you, I mean, were you worried about your rights to live and work in Germany at any point since the Brexit vote?
No.
No.
At the end of the day, I'm somebody who originally migrated over here before the Maastricht Treaty back in '83, where the European Economic Community allowed people to move and work in other countries, but there wasn't the right to just move and look for a job. You had to have a job to go to, and you also had to prove that you weren't going to be a burden on the state. You had to come in, show your cards, get your residence permit for 1 year. We'll see how we go, and if after a year or 2 years you become a burden on the state, then it's back to UK. And that was the way it was up until the 90s.
And that, John, presumably you thought was a perfectly fair system.
Of course, and I see no reason to suppose that would have ever changed. People lived and existed before these treaty changes in the 90s. The difficulty we have, and it's the same we have in Scotland, where there's now, not young people who are in their late 20s, early 30s, who, they can't remember what it was like before, that we existed before.
Yes.
The world went on.
No, I take that. No, I mean, John, actually, free movement, before the First World War, there were no passports. People could move wherever they liked, but I think probably the argument is it was only the rich that could do it. So John, what do you think Mrs May's negotiating position, her stance should be next Thursday at this big summit with Angela Merkel and the others in Brussels?
Well, at the end of the day, I don't think there's any realistic doubt that people who have genuinely settled in the United Kingdom aren't a burden on the state, which is very important. They aren't a burden on the state, have work, haven't been causing crime, etc. That these people clearly should have the right to stay, as no doubt people are in the United Kingdom. But the House of Lords, frankly, it's basically almost like a Walter Mitty importance, grandstanding. That isn't the forum to have this kind of debate. It's like the SNP in Scotland unilaterally deciding they're staying in the EU. The trouble is they haven't asked the European Union or the other countries whether they want them, and the answer is no. So it's the wrong forum to have this kind of thing. It's grandstanding, it's self-importance. They should let the government get on with it.
Right. John? Thank you very much indeed. You made all your points beautifully. Catherine on Facebook says, I'm an American. We need more than a wall. We need to change laws and dry up benefits for non-US citizens. OK, Catherine, we've got it. Joy says, the silly lords have cut off their noses and spited their faces. Lee says, it's like a car licence. If you pass before 1997, you can drive up to 7.5 tonnes. They didn't change the law and take it off you. The immigrants can stay as the law was that way at the time. Well, Lee, that is the view strongly that I take. And Bob says, if a bill was passed in the Commons to get rid of the Lords, would the House of Lords have the final say on it? Well, this, of course, is a debate that's gone on since 1911, Bob, when Asquith was trying to reform the House of Lords. He threatened to make 500 new peers to flood it. Ultimately, to change the House of Lords, to get rid of the House of Lords, as it is going to need a government with a general election majority, possibly backed up by a referendum. I'd love to see a referendum on should we have Peter Mandelson and co. sitting in the House of Lords. That would be great, great sport. And I'm not sure that the Lords would get a very fair hearing from the British public, because I think overwhelmingly we would think that it's out of date and it's time for us to move on. Our next caller, who is our next caller? Doug in Lancashire is our next caller. Doug, what do you make of Mrs May's dilemma?
Well, I'm concerned this evening, Nigel, given the fact that the House of Lords have voted against the thing. Something that's cropped up today that's been brought to my attention is the moment that, given the fact that we are struggling to get Article 50 invoked by the 31st of March, I'm aware, or correct me if I'm wrong, that there is a new thing coming in called the qualified majority vote into the EU that says that as from the 31st of March, if Article 50 has not been invoked in the UK, then it will be up to 14 EU member states to support our decision to leave. That is very disturbing.
Well, there is, I mean, there are changes, Doug. Yeah, there are changes coming to the voting rules on the European Council, and ultimately, Doug, what nobody's really thought about in this country is that the moment we do declare Article 50, effectively we've knocked the ball back to their side of the net, and they're in charge of where it goes. And I think one or two people may be shocked after Article 50 is triggered, how much we're in their hands. And there's all sorts of wordings about, the European Council can debate and make decisions on things that affect us, but without us having a say. And ultimately, Doug, it is the European Parliament that can veto the deal at the end of the day. So this may not be an easy process, Doug.
No, but what this article is saying is that if we don't trigger Article 50 by the 31st of March, we've lost the argument, we've lost the battle. It's up to the EU coming in because of the new rule within the EU.
Well, I wouldn't buy that completely, Doug. It may get more tricky, but the point is the European Summit, the meeting of 28 heads of state, takes place at the end of next week in Brussels. That is the moment to do it. She's got a week to sort things out. Peter, in Hazelmere, what do you make of Mrs May's dilemma?
To the point, Nigel, Mrs May was a Remainer. God bless her, she changed her mind when she was made Prime Minister, became a Leaver. I'm a committed Leaver like yourself. That was a massive change of position. This is a minor change of position because it was never an issue. She's made it an issue. She can get out of it by simply turning around the other way. And just think about the fact that in France, when they had their elections, there's going to be a new president. Whoever's elected is going to be in favour of Great Britain remaining in contact with France. Angela Merkel made a decision unilaterally to bring 1 million people to a country without discussing it with anybody. As you said so many times, the Spanish will welcome us with open arms. She's just changed her mind. Her respect will go up for me if she does that.
Right.
And we'll get on with it.
So, Peter, when you voted Brexit, not for 1 second did you think we'd start mass deportations of people who'd legally come to Britain, did you?
Absolutely not. I mean, apart from the fact I'm married to an Italian girl and 2 of my children were born in France, I've got a Danish sister-in-law and Australian cousins. Absolutely not. I mean, they're entitled to be here, just like my wife's grandparents came here after the Second World War. And
Peter, what we're saying is, in the future, there will be people who come to live, work and settle in our country from other European countries. It's just the rules will be stricter, we'll have a limit, and it'll be much tougher to access benefits for many years. That's really what this is about, isn't it?
Absolutely. It should be, as you've said many times, Nigel, this has to be an equal situation for everybody, irrespective of where they come from in the world. If they all happen to come from the European Union because they're better qualified, so be it. But let's get this one off her back. Come on, Theresa, make a decision. Change your mind.
Peter, I agree with you absolutely, completely on all the points you made on that call, and I wonder what Daniel in Richmond thinks.
Yeah, hi Nigel. Well, just a quick one because I just have a minute apparently. I am German. I came to this country 10 years ago. My wife is born in Pakistan, so also an immigrant. We both voted for Brexit. I was on part of the Liberal Party back in Germany 5 years ago, which I left because I was against the euro. I saw it failing. It's a macroeconomic disaster. If anything, there should be North and South euro, if anything. I don't know if you agree on that.
It's a bit late for that, isn't it, really?
It is, but just to let you know, I think it's a terrible timing in the sense that we're losing, and I'm very much pro-Brexit, and we have a very good position, and we're a great country. You know, we need to be great again. But it's terrible timing from the House of Lords. That should have been, and I never was fearful of being deported further down the line. No. So I think this is just a big media fuss. We're just scaring tactics.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Daniel, I think you're right. Daniel, you're right. Thank you. And that is my first and final thought on this subject. None of us who fought this referendum did so to say we should retrospectively change the law on people's rights who'd come to the country legally. We're not that kind of country. Yes, I think we let too many people in, but we did it legally. That's the point. It would be an outrage to suggest that somehow you came legally and a country like us is retrospectively going to change the law. I think the government got this one wrong. I think rather than this being a bargaining chip, this actually is where she should go in next Thursday, claim the high moral ground, and whilst it bugs me to say it, just accept what the House of Lords have said. And you know what? We can get rid of them at some point in the not too distant future, because I really think we should. Coming up at 10 o'clock, it's Ian Collins, but up next...